your seatbelt. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Chrissie is hilarious.
Chrissie, have you ever heard of the comedian Basha K. Ali?
No, that sounds like something you yell out before you blow up a plane.
Basha K. Ali!
30 seconds remaining.
But you know what good thing to say? I doubt it will stand up to something. I haven't been disrespectful to you at all.
I was very confused by the title, Everything Everywhere All at Once, because that's also what we call it when Ash takes off his shirt. I shouldn't be up here. I should be in school on the other side of the ocean. Hello. Welcome to the Chrissie Mayr podcast. You can listen to this show on, everywhere. iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Rumble, Rockfin, Twitch, even Facebook sometimes when they'll have me. Before I bring on my friend and our fabulous guest, I have a couple of shows to promote. Guys, it's not in my calendar, but I will be presenting an award at the Grifties in 2 weeks, Saturday, March 9th at Tiff's Ale House in Morris Plains, New Jersey. That is not this Saturday, but next Saturday, March 9th. So you can get tickies. Get your tickies at grifties.com. Then 2 weeks after that, I'll be headlining in Grantville, Pennsylvania at the Laughingstock Comedy Club. That's Friday, March 22nd. Laughingstock Comedy Club, Grantville, Pennsylvania. For tickets, go to chrissiemayr.com. One last headlining show before I give birth. I know I said the last one was the last one, but this one is really going to be the last one. And if I give birth on stage, drinks on me. That's my promise to you all. Without further ado, she's been on the podcast before several times. She's been at least one of my content houses. She's had her own debacle with her own TikTok content houses. In fact, she's here to talk about specifically that and how she survived a media hit job by one Ms. Taylor Lorenz. Welcome back to the show, Ari Jacob. Hello.
Hello. So good to see you, my friend.
It is so good to see you too. You have been, so for people who maybe haven't seen you on the show at all or are not following this drama, I will try to describe it the best I can, and then you can tell me what I'm getting wrong. So, Ari, you used to manage a bunch of TikTok stars. In fact, like, I always bring it back to this girl, Charli D'Amelio, who was probably the first girl to really blow up on TikTok. And
totally.
she stands out in my mind because she's the only person I know who got a Dunkin' Donuts drink named after her, which I always felt like I had a problem with because I'm like, if anything, Charlie's like a Starbucks girl. I'm a Dunkin' Donuts girl, okay? Like, give me the drink, okay? I'm amongst the people, okay? So I know you've managed lots of other folks, but I always just remember her. And so Taylor Lorenz, who a lot of people know just from being kind of a bit of an internet lolcow at this point. I know she was spotted recently with libs of TikToks. I'm probably going to mispronounce her name, but like Chaya Rancic, I think is her name. Taylor was Chaya Rancic. I think she was the one who ended up doxing her at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So Taylor, just from everything I've heard about her, read about her, seen about her, just an incredibly dishonest reporter, very good at writing convincing narratives. You and her had been friends or colleagues at one point. And then how did your guys' relationship turn contentious?
To be honest with you, I just had my head down and was like working in my space, which was moving so fast at the time, because you got to remember in 2019, 2020. So the pandemic happened. And essentially what happened is I was at the right place at the right time because TikTok was exploding. It was the first time, like if you don't remember before TikTok, I mean, most of your people probably were around before TikTok.
When I was your age, we didn't have TikTok. We just talked to one another.
Remember before Reels and TikTok, I mean, people would basically post on Instagram static images. Maybe some people would be posting on YouTube or maybe they would be posting videos on Instagram. But the fact was that, to put something on video where you're like dancing around or miming something or making original content.
Winking at words. That was my favorite era. The early days of TikTok where people would just be like,
there was even an app that was like, I feel like it was before TikTok. I forget what it was, but you could do like you could lip sync all the movie quotes and stuff like that. But anyway, when TikTok first came along, what happened is that there was millions and millions and millions of people on the TikTok app, which was before Musical.ly. And there was only like 100 people making videos, right? So I mean, maybe there's thousands of them on there, but like, you would see the same people over and over again if you're scrolling on the app. So because I was managing those people that were sort of early on to TikTok, they were like they became so famous so fast because you had to remember there, especially when the pandemic happened, it was like no new TV shows, no new music touring, no concerts, there was nothing. And so all these bloodthirsty sort of Hollywood people that typically are used to making a ton of money, they stopped making, were getting laid off as talent agents. And so I was at the right place at the right time. Taylor Lorenz had just gotten her job at the New York Times a few months before, and she wanted to be like the person in charge of covering the social media, like anything popular popping off in social media. She wanted to be the journalist that sort of legitimized that thing within in the New York Times. You get what I'm saying? Because typically the New York Times is not writing about TikTok stars and whatnot. She was also writing,
and they're irrelevant. And,
yeah, exactly. And she was, writing about new apps like Clubhouse and things that were going on. Anyway, she wanted to be the sort of, the writer of history of the internet, of social media. And at the time, I watched, she wrote one article about Charli D'Amelio and the Hype House. And within probably 3 or 4 days, these influencers had my email up. They had Charli D'Amelio, or they had Charli at influences.com. Influences was my company. So I was getting all of Charli's emails. So within 2 or 3 days of Taylor Lorenz writing a positive article about Charli D'Amelio, I was the one that got the Dunkin' Donuts email. I was the one that got the inbound email saying, hey, it's Dunkin' Donuts. We just found out about Charli. We'd love to work with her, because she was like the all-American girl. So my first experience of Taylor Lorenz is damn, if she writes a good article about you in the New York Times, you're going to be famous
she can
overnight.
Make things happen. Yeah.
Yes. And so, I didn't really realize it at the time, but Taylor did that story on Charli without calling me. And it was just really weird how she got in with those kids. Obviously she was like, oh, do you want to be in the New York Times? And they got excited about it. I didn't realize that was something to be super alarmed over until I talked to our PR person. And she was like, hey, get your kids on there. But and by the way, I say kids, but most of my influencers were over 18, but
yeah, they're mentally children.
Yeah. But sometimes when you say kids, people are like, oh, she was managing 12-year-olds and stealing all their money. You know what I mean? They were adults. But then I sort of, I didn't realize that Taylor Lorenz had a talent agent. That was another stupid thing on my part. I didn't know that journalists had talent agents or that they had agents. And it makes sense now. They're the ones that negotiate their book deals. And, I am assuming get them on different, Dateline or different shows. I don't really know.
Was repped by United Talent Agency, which was a direct competitor to your group, Influences.
Right. Yeah.
So
and I didn't know
that motivation to sandbag you.
Yeah. At first I'm like, maybe I'm tripping. Maybe this was just, but no, absolutely. She had a a big conflict of interest, a big financial conflict of interest. And the other thing that's nuts is that the New York Times has all these, guidelines by which supposedly the journalists are supposed to abide. Like, you're not supposed to write articles about people that give you money. She wrote a glowing article about UTA in the New York Times and didn't, say that, oh yeah, by the way, I'm represented by
it was like what talent agency is repping all the hottest TikTok stars, and of course, and it's about UTA,
Yeah.
her agency.
Yeah. So I think it was an inside job. And essentially, I'm like going along trying to build my business. And the other mistake I made, I think, is that I was like a bootstrapped founder, kind of started from zero. And I made that like kind of part of my spiel, like, because I felt like it would help people trust me more, because I wasn't like this slimy Hollywood person backed by like millions of dollars. I was backed by just like people that believed in me and that thought I did good work. But the problem by doing that is I think I made myself like a really easy target, because
to pick off because you're not part of the machine.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, if you're going to write an article about like, I don't know, let's say even Dave Portnoy, right? You know that like all his fans are going to go after you, that he has a ton of money, like you could probably sue you. If you go up against somebody that has a lot of money or that has a lot of influence, then you know that you're going to have a bigger fight ahead. Whereas like when she started picking on me, she didn't think that like, what are the repercussions going to be really in this situation?
Wow. So dirty, so underhanded.
And if you ever have like, journalists that's trying to, do an article about you, the fact is like, if they want to do it and their editors give them the okay to do it, like it doesn't matter what information you give them, like they're going to take that information and literally twist it into whatever it is that they want to say. And that was the hardest part to like realize as just like a normal person, is that when she started reaching out, I told my attorney, I'm like, well, just give her everything. Like, we're not doing anything wrong. We're not cheating. We're not lying. We're not stealing. Yeah. And my lawyer's like, well, you signed an NDA with, L'Oreal and with with Chipotle and these other brands. So when Taylor came to me and was like, hey, I heard these influencers weren't getting paid on time, I wanted to be like, well, here's all the documents from this company. And if they paid late, like they're the ones paying late, not me. I'm not supposed to pay the kids before. But my lawyer was like, well, you can't do that because then L'Oreal is going to come after you, or, whatever XYZ company. Okay. You get what I'm saying? So they put you between a wall and a hard place, because they know that. And then if you say no comment, then they can, they can print it and twist it and all this stuff. So ultimately she wrote the article and she published it. And then I went to the two lawyers that I had at the time, and they're like, listen, Ari, and I did my own research too. Like the New York Times in particular, if they write an article about you, that's like the worst thing possible in terms of fighting back, because the New York Times hasn't lost a defamation libel case since the 1960s, according to them. And that was a long time ago. And, the reason why is because there's some laws that came into place where, if you're a public figure and somebody talks bad about you, the law really, really sides with talking about whatever it is. I understand why that is, right? It's freedom of speech. It's the ability to question authority. And if you get it wrong while you're trying to question like the government or a government official, but like today in the world that we live in, you're probably a public figure just by if you ever tweeted at Chrissie. Like if Chrissie ever tweeted at you or tweeted back at you, you could be considered a public figure.
I tweet back at people with 14 followers. I'm saying all kinds of arguments,
so it's like, it's different. I think if you're like, for example, that kid that he went to the Chiefs game with like one side painted black.
That little bub. Yeah.
And they said he was blackface.
Yeah.
So that kid probably will not be considered a public figure. So his case might be a little bit easier to prove, but even still, they're going to have to prove somehow that like, how did he lose? So that when he grows up, he's going to lose money because you have to prove damages basically, right? So you have to say, this is how, so if you file a defamation lawsuit against someone, you have to prove that they not only said something that was untrue. If you're a public figure, you have to prove malice, which means you have to prove that they knew it was untrue in their brain, right? How do you do that? It's very hard to prove what is in someone's
Right.
head.
I guess you'd have to collect over time, like tweets, motivation,
But
where they were at.
it's not that they were being malicious like in a the feeling of malicious. It's malice is actually proving that that they knew they were lying when they said it. So for example, my case got to go forward on one statement that she made, and that was that she said that I leaked nude photos of a client for revenge. Okay. But let me
Which is
actually
crazy
go
because they had already been leaked either
well,
what
yeah.
he himself leaked them, or he ended up claiming that someone was in his phone and it was in the iCloud, and
But here's
it
the
sounded
craziest
like
part about that. Yeah, it's nuts. This is actually what happened. So I'm a manager to these people. That guy that had the nude photos, he's a 25-year-old guy living in a content house full of male TikTokers. And then I had another house full of female male TikTokers, but I had some that were like 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever. So, and this guy is interacting with my girls, right? So, and I'm like the house mama bear, you know? So at this point, another manager texts me and he goes, "Hey, you might want to look into this thing. Devion has nudes all over the internet, and there is a Telegram group with like over 100,000 people, and they're saying that and his nudes are on there, and they're saying that he sent them to a 14-year-old girl." Okay,
oh,
this is so I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, okay, well, and I'm like not totally following because I'm like, well, what do you mean an online forum? And I'm like, can you like show me what you're talking about? So this other manager just sends me like a screen recording of the Telegram room, and where it's basically talking about it even shows my company. So my company logo is next to a picture of Devion. A thing that said this guy sent nudes to a 14-year-old, and then there's like little in like you can't even see the image, little tiny thumbnails, but it's not that's like I can't see the thumbnails in the screenshot that I got. Okay. I get that sent to me, and then I'm like, holy shit. So I'm like, okay, well, let me check with him because I don't have proof or whatever that he did send them to a 14-year-old girl. I'm just like, basically, Mama Bear is getting told this. I got to do my due diligence, right? Because if it turns out to be true, then I don't want to work with this guy anymore, right? So I hit up the guy and I'm like, hey, did you do this? And I'm sending them the screenshots from the other manager. And he goes into a long rant about how like someone broke into his iCloud and leaked his nudes everywhere. And so anyway, Taylor wrote in the story, she emailed us back and forth about, 5 hours before the story printed or something like that. And we answered like 30 or 40, 50 questions. I don't remember. My attorney did. And in one of them, she goes, "We're not alleging that Ari leaked the nude photos." And then in the article, she prints, "Ari leaked my nudes," like a quote from Devion Young. So this is how difficult these defamation cases are, is that, first of all, I had to find an attorney to take my case on contingency, which means that they get a percentage. Usually contingency cases are like 40, 45%. So if I win a lawsuit, they would get 45%. And you have to pay the legal expenses. What I mean by legal expenses is that you're not paying for the attorney hours. You're paying for literally like deposition costs. Like you have to pay for like mediate. Like you have to pay for all these.
Sounds like more, like a lot more than
it's a lot more than free. Yeah, people think like, okay, the biggest hurdle was to get an attorney on contingency. The second hurdle was like, okay, how am I going to pay for all this stuff? And I think in the beginning, there was some interest from like some big dogs, like, millionaires and billionaires that were like, oh, we'll fund this lawsuit. But at the time, Taylor still had a lot of like credibility and power. And really over the course of the last 3 years, Taylor Lorenz has like made herself into the biggest joke. Like I couldn't have I couldn't have made her look like such a joke if I tried. Like what she did to herself, to her own reputation. And so in a way it's great because she exposed herself. In a way it's not great because people are kind of like, well, what's the point of funding a lawsuit against her if we're not worried about her anymore. Like she can't take somebody, like if she does an article about you, probably means you fucking rock. You know what I mean? Now today, like in 2023, if Taylor Lorenz writes about you in a negative way, it means that you are a rock star. And that's how a lot of people see it. So ultimately I announced, and actually Chrissie kind of got to see how this went down. Cause when I went with you to, that,
TPUSA.
TPUSA.
Yeah.
So you
Phoenix. Fun.
Yeah. So like when you're in a lawsuit for defamation, you have to prove damages. And so what that means is like, of course, after they published the bad article in 2020, I immediately lost clients. Like if a big corporate brand wanted to work with me and they run my name through their system, it's going to get flagged as like, this person has bad press. Like we can't work with them. If you're Target, if you're, it's just the way that big corporate brands work. Even if they like you, they're like, yeah, you have some, fire going on. We don't want that. Like, we don't want that near us. And so, but what happens is if you're in a defamation lawsuit and you have to prove damages, they're not just looking at what happened right after the article went out, right? They're looking at like, okay, what was this person's reputation worth, right? So if I go and start hanging out with like we were talking to the shaman, the
yes, the Jake the shaman, yeah.
And I like felt so bad because Jake the shaman was so cool, right? But he took a picture with me, and I immediately was like, okay, I'm gonna take a picture with him. Look, not because I didn't like him, not because I don't think he's awesome. Him, yeah. I need to get it. Now I can post whatever. But like, this is how I was walking through, like on eggshells for 3 years, because I'm like, I know if I go to court, the New York Times is going to pull up all these pictures, me with the shaman, me doing this, and be like, look, this girl ruined her own reputation. She's a crazy right winger that's obsessed with Taylor Lorenz and like won't leave her alone and all this stuff. And so it's like, fuck, like I felt like I'd like, and here's the other thing too. It's like, had I raised like the couple $100,000 I needed to move forward with the lawsuit, if the lawsuit like ended or if I lost because of something I did, I would have felt like so embarrassed and so like guilty for taking people's money to fight the New York Times. And so what I would have had to do is like live the next probably, I already spent like almost 4 years on this, maybe another 3 or 4 years, like being quiet. And for me, it's like the opportunity cost of not being able to now become a creator, to be on podcasts, to speak my mind, to share everything I know about the creator space, which is so much useful information to people who want to become YouTubers or, TikTokers, Twitter people, like whatever. I have a wealth of knowledge that I feel like is actually more valuable than the money I could have made finishing off this lawsuit. Now, I went through with it up until we won 2 big things. Like the judge acknowledged, like, yes, this is a viable case and you can take this forward, which is one of the big, it's hard to even get your day in court, right? So I felt like, this is such a win. I already got my reputation back. Like I went on Tucker Carlson, talked about it. I also like got my mental, like,
when was that? When was the Tucker appearance?
I went on Tucker in 2021, I think. Like, it was crazy because I was supposed to go on there and I had a date booked, and then like we pulled out of Afghanistan, and then my buddy Matt was like, yeah, you're probably going to get pushed. Like, you're probably not going to do a TikTok story this week. And so he's like, but they said you're for sure going to be on. And I'm like, okay. So then it was like the next week, and then so it was like 7 weeks later. And by that point I was so prepared. I actually stoked it happened that way because I said it so clearly what had happened, and I felt really good about what I said. And so, and then I got to meet so many cool people because a lot of really cool people came forward and were like, hey, what happened to you was fucked up, especially because I wasn't political at all. So I didn't understand why nobody on the left nobody would tell my side of the story. Not even before I sued Taylor. I mean, I think only one mainstream written publication published that I sued her. But before that, nobody would like tell my side of the story. Like you watch that video of if on my Twitter, I have a pinned video of kind of a guy that goes through the story of what happened to me. But, I thought maybe like LA Times or, Hollywood, or not Hollywood, whatever, like the dozens of different
photo, you mean? Or
Oh, I just mean like Rolling Stone. Like I thought somebody,
Okay.
would tell the TechCrunch. I don't know. I thought somebody would like see what happened to me, but no, because why? Because they're liberal leaning, stations or not stations, publications. And I'm like, but I'm not even at the time, like 21, I'm like, I'm not even Republican. Why won't they tell my story? Oh, because they don't want to make New York Times look bad. They don't want to make Taylor look bad. So then I started like having all these people that, came to my, took my side and listened to my story. And then they became my friends. And I'm like, well, all these people are Republican. So maybe these people are like the people that have some common sense. And it just pushed me away from, I was apolitical before, but I definitely think I lean more right now because I just feel like
You're
that's
like these people
those are
care
my
about
people.
fairness and want to
Yeah.
hear my story.
Yeah.
And aren't just putting me in a box based on
Right.
ideology.
Yeah. And I think like, and then, like, so when I had this decision of like, okay, do we keep going? Do I put every dollar I have into this maybe situation, which like hasn't been beat by anybody since the 1960s? Like if there's been billionaires that have sued the New York Times and they didn't win. So it's like, at that point, you figure out like what is a win. A win for me is being happy, right? Like a win for me is I moved to Vegas because everything that happened with the New York Times. And then I met Kyle, my boyfriend, who's literally like the love of my life. And I'm like,
Oh,
honestly,
he's the
if
best.
Taylor hadn't have done that, like I would have never met Kyle. So
Wow.
like
That's a
you
great way
kind
to
of have
look at it.
to
Yeah.
you have to look at things and just decide like what would make you happy. What would make me happy now is I want to write a book about how to survive a hit job. I want to do a documentary about how this happened. Because I was getting emails not just about people that got attacked by Taylor Lorenz, but the problem that people need to understand is that we're living in a society where journalists are abusing the power that the law gives them to basically write anything they want and become like complete reputation assassins with absolutely no accountability. And I don't think that the general public sees or understands that. I think people that watch you or are interested in politics or media, they understand that, but the average person does not understand that. They don't understand how it could affect them, because if they're doing it, they don't understand that if they're doing it to people like Trump or they're doing it to people, public people, that they could do it to the little guy. And the reason they're not hearing about the millions of stories of the little guys that are being crushed because of this like journalistic phenomenon is because the little guy literally cannot fight back. Even in a position where I felt like I fought back and I like got in, I threw a few good punches at Taylor and I may not have knocked her out, but like most people can't even get in the ring, So
what would you consider to be like the good punches you were able to throw at her?
Well, I definitely think that suing the New York Times triggered the New York Times to be like, dude, you got to stop tweeting because like now this is a big liability. And I think that probably when she was at the New York Times, she was writing whatever she wanted. And there's like all these older people that like don't really understand.
They're not in touch. They're
her beat.
crusty.
Yeah. So they're like, oh, she's probably like saying, it's not like they're, writing the right things. But anyway, she basically wrote 2 days after I filed the lawsuit in 2020. She wrote, hey guys, I'm going to be taking a break off of Twitter. I'm going to go write my book. And then like, she literally didn't tweet while she was at the New York Times again. Pretty sure until she tweeted like, hey guys, I'm at the Washington Post now. And then she started tweeting all about like COVID and like, she's like a crazy COVID conspiracy person. But anyway, I think that like either I got her fired or I got her silenced by the New York Times. And then she literally couldn't handle being silenced. So she left and went to the Washington Post, because the Washington Post is not an upgrade to New York Times. She had a really prestigious position at the New York Times. And, like if you weren't into politics, if you're a kid, a millennial or whatever, you think of the New York Times, and like the way I used to think about it was like, the newspaper get thrown on the porch, and then, they'd open the New York Times.
It was the creme de la creme. I remember being in college and my professors would be like, you ain't shit unless you're reading the New York Times every day. You're not a person who's seeking a higher intelligence, higher education, unless you are literally cover to cover reading the Times every day. And I was like,
exactly.
Okay. It was the smarty pants paper.
The funny thing is that before, like with the whole Charlie, when she wrote about Charlie and all this stuff, she wrote about the content houses I was building. And I literally went out and bought, like, she did a good article before she did a bad article about me. She did a good article about the kids, right? So this is where she, like, I think kind of manipulated them. She was like, oh, here, let me pump you guys up, but like now I need you guys to give me some dirt on your manager. And then she wrote the negative story. But when she wrote the positive story about the influencers, like I went out and got 30 copies of it and framed it framed it in the house, because I thought it was so cool, at the time. And I think that's how a lot of people, the average person that's not, super into all the stuff that probably we are, that's how they look at a newspaper like the New York Times. And so, I think that was one big punch that, she will never admit to. She'll probably say she left on her own or whatever, but I mean, think about it. She never tweeted again while at the New York Times until
she loves to talk. She loves to hear herself talk. She loves to tweet. Yeah.
Oh, Frank.
Oh, Frank. Thank you for the super chat, Frank. Hey, Ari, big fan. Since you've been involved with Ms. Lorenz legally, can you confirm that she just celebrated her 76th birthday? Thanks.
I feel like you're probably not wrong. She still wouldn't admit her age, I guess, when she talked to Shia, what lives with TikTok recently, I heard.
How did that even become a thing? She just started kind of lying about it and she got caught.
So on her Wikipedia, it was like age, like it had like a range of like 3 years, and nobody could pinpoint how old she was. And then she won like I don't know if it was like Forbes 40 under 40 or I forget what it was. It was Fortune magazine, I think maybe it was, gave her like a under 40 thing, or I don't remember. Maybe it was 30 under 30. Can't remember. But anyway, then people were questioning it because they're like, wait, was that actually right? I forget what the thing was. And then she ultimately didn't want to say what year, because she's afraid that people are going to look her up, like what year she graduated, and go after like people that know her. I don't really know.
And usually you can find that information fairly easily. But as someone in the chat mentioned, her uncle, I believe, is the inventor of the Wayback Machine, and which very much benefited her directly, because I think she was able to scrub a lot of her internet history.
Well, this is where so her uncle, if it's that guy that we saw in that one tweet that one time a long time ago, he's the founder of the Wayback Machine, I think it's like the television division. So he's not like the one that did the internet division, but it's still the same company. He's like the founder and either sold to that company or is part of that company. So she twisted it by saying like, oh no, she's not the founder of the Wayback Machine. It's like basically saying, I'm not the owner of like Disney. I'm the owner of like Disney Plus or something. I don't know, of like, some other company that Disney owns, like basically is what it's the same. But yeah, she has a lot of, I think, also power behind the scenes, and she tries to act like she has no money. And here's why
every time you look at her, she's dressed to the nines and like
dresses like she has no money. Jewelry. That's for sure.
Really? Okay. Maybe I can't tell. She always, I feel like, looks very put together, and like her hair is always straight. I don't know. To me, she looks like
I saw her at a conference and she was like wearing Birkenstocks and anyway. But I digress on that. But what was I going to say? Oh, what was I going to say about I forget. What else were we talking about?
Talking about the
ADHD,
ways the
ADHD
punches
Oh
that
yeah.
you were able to get in on her.
Oh yeah. So then she goes to the Washington Post, and then on Christmas Eve, I think it was like 2022 or yeah, 2022. She got suspended from Twitter for a day by Elon Musk because I tweeted. So Elon Musk was getting like all these articles written about him. Journalists were amplifying the account that was basically doxing his private jet, and he was like putting Elon's kids in danger. And people shouldn't do that. Like, if you know a celebrity and you figure out what their tail number is, then you can track it because that tail number is public. But the fact that it's associated to the celebrity is not public. And people that do that, I don't think it's right, because it does pose like a huge safety risk, because they can basically follow you anywhere you are. And in fact, I think Taylor Swift is like selling her jet just so she can get another one with a new number that nobody would find out about. So anyway, so people were talking about doxing, and I said, well, Taylor doxed me in the New York Times before she doxed Chaya Raichik, and nobody like knows about it. I mean, I'm not like a political activist like Chaya is, so I don't expect people to care. But yeah, she did it to me, and I was just a regular person. She literally told me that she wasn't going to publish the addresses of the influencer houses, and then in a text, she's like, "Oh, that's not for publication." And then she literally posted a link to the Zillow address where I was living at one of the houses at the time.
Jesus.
Which is totally wrong. Like, it's like people are like, "Oh, that's a business because that's where the influencers lived." I'm like, no, it wasn't a business. It was literally a house that the influencers happened to live there. But it's like people aren't
For like
over
a
there.
month, right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
Well, no, they were living there like month to month. But the even like the Bachelor, the ABC's The Bachelor, people don't just put that address of that house on the internet. I'm sure that there's like, if one of their contestants put it on, that would be super illegal, and they'd get sued by ABC for doxing the address where the Bachelor house is. Is the same thing, only I wasn't backed by ABC. So so she doxed me, and then Elon responded to my tweet and said, like, this type of like behavior will not be allowed on this platform. So that was pretty fun. I think like that was like a couple months after your Content House, and a bunch of people from Content House were tweeting me on Christmas Eve. They're like, "Hey, Merry Christmas, Ari! Like, Taylor got suspended," and all this stuff. I mean, obviously, it wasn't a big punch. I think she enjoyed the attention because she's such an attention whore. Like, it's yeah. I mean, she likes the negative attention. Good for her. I mean,
Wow.
whatever. But then the biggest punch, I think, was that that the New York Times filed to dismiss the lawsuit, and like 99% of the time, they always get it dismissed. The judge dismissed everything but one sentence in the thing. Not because I didn't have good claims in there, but because of all these hoops you have to jump over just to get your day in court. And the judge said that the statement about the nude images, like, yes, that could be defamatory, and it could be malicious because Taylor admitted that no one is alleging Ari leaked nudes. And then she leaked my nudes. So the judge said, yes. Then Taylor's law firm, and you could talk to any attorney, most attorneys have never filed what's called a motion to reconsider. A motion to reconsider is like telling the judge, you got it wrong. Wow. Most attorneys don't want to tell a judge he got it wrong. It's different to like have an appeal, because then you're saying you're on appeal, but you're sending it to a higher court for them to check. This is just saying like, hey, you got it wrong, and you need to like look at this again because you made a mistake. And once you do that, if you lose a motion to reconsider, then it's really hard for your case. If I had won, then it would have been really hard for them to appeal that because of that. They lost the motion to reconsider. So they lost the motion to dismiss, and then the motion to reconsider. This was their argument. Their argument was, well, Lorenz in her brain thought that publicly leak and to leak are two different things. Or I'm sorry, to privately leak and to leak are two different things. Privately leak, who privately leaks something? What does that even mean? To privately
to someone else in a DM, I guess, is that what they think?
But to that's what that was their argument. They're saying like, well, she's saying they didn't publicly leak it, but in her head, like privately leak. But privately leak, like if she saw the same screenshot I saw, then isn't she leaking photos? Like
a leak is a leak because once you send it to somebody, then it can go public.
Exactly. And the thing is too, though, is that I wasn't leaking it like to the media. I wasn't even leaking nudes at whatsoever. By the way, the nudes that were on this Telegram with hundreds of thousands of people, they had already been leaked like months and months before, like 2 months before like any of this had happened. And I wasn't leaking them. I let the internal consultant in my company. So basically, I sent it to the HR director. Hey, this is what's going on. And not his nudes, just the messages where I was getting from the other manager, like explaining the situation. That's all I sent to the HR person, who, by the way, was under an NDA, non-disparagement with me. So, and so were all the influencers. All the influencers breached their contracts. I mean, it's just, what are you going to do? Go sue 85 people when you're broke? Like, it's just not possible. You got to choose like one pony that you're going to like try to ride, and that's it. And, but ultimately, like, you know, it's the game really is rigged against the average person when it comes to defamation. And then the other thing too, guys, is that in some cases this is good, right? Because it helps with like covering stories that people want to cover. But like journalists have a lot of protection. So if Taylor was like talking shit about me and being like, yeah, I'm going to take her business down and, you know, destroy this bitch, like, we may not have ever gotten those text messages because she has protection. So like if people talk to her off the record and they didn't, and she wasn't allowed to put them in the story, like those are allowed to be, what's it called? Like
in discovery.
Like they're called anonymous sources. So when we get discovery, like we don't get those text messages between her and the sort. Like, do you get what I'm saying? It's like, that's how hard it is.
Yeah.
Taylor gets all my text messages for my whole life and all my social media.
Damn.
Like any, like I would have had to turn in text message. If I talked about Taylor to you, I would have had to turn that in. And then, you know, they could use, I mean, it's like, I wasn't ashamed of anything. I think like, you know, but at the same time, you guys, like the New York Times has the highest paid, best attorneys in libel and defamation cases in the country. Not that my attorneys are amazing, but when you're up against that, it's like, of course they're going to twist. That's what I'm saying. That of course they're going to get the picture of the J6 shaman and show it to a jury in New York, right? And be like, well, do you think this girl was going to make a lot of money? Look who she surrounds herself with.
Wow.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Picture of us.
Yeah. But it's like, and so that's why I'm like, at the end of the day, people are like, oh, you didn't win. Like, why are you pretending you won? I'm like, actually, I did win. I mean, what I got out of it was incredible, like, resilience. Like, I know what I can put myself through now. Nobody is going to be able to cancel me for as long as I live and put me in that place of like shame that Taylor did to me. Because here's what happens when you get canceled, guys. And if you're not like a public figure, somebody writes a terrible article about you, right? You try to live your life with integrity. Are you perfect? Absolutely fucking not. You are a human being. Make mistakes all the time. But the article they write about you doesn't talk about any of the mistakes you've actually made. The article they write about you is completely made up. And when you're somebody like me who like really wanted to help these people like with their dreams, and then those people turn around and get manipulated by this journalist and basically like make you out to be like literally Lou Pearlman. I don't know if you guys know who Lou Pearlman is, but he's like the guy that took advantage of like the Backstreet Boys and all those. Like when they paint you as the worst person ever, then you're like, okay, I'm going to pick my life back up and I'm going to go forward with my life. And then maybe you like approach new people and in your mind, you feel this shame. And the shame comes from something you didn't do, but you feel shame because you're like,
out there.
Yeah, you're like, okay, do I tell this person that I just met, like, or maybe you're trying to get a job, right? Hey, by the way, like if you Google me, you might find this article. And then it's like, you're bringing up this shitty thing, and why do you have to bring that? So in your brain, you're like, okay, do I bring that up, or do you not bring it up? And then in your mind, you're like anxiety ridden because you're like, what if they find out about it? And then they're like, why didn't she tell me about it? And then they're going to be like, oh, this person's a scumbag because they're trying to hide this thing. So it's like
and then maybe they leave you, or they fall off, or they stop talking to you, and you're like, is that why?
Exactly. And then there you go. And that's the other thing. You're in your head. So probably this situation happens like 5% of the time, but in your mind, like, let's just say like somebody forgets to text you back, and then you're like, oh, fuck, they read the article. And you're just constantly basically bashing yourself as a human being. Like, that's not, like, people lose their lives. Yeah, it's unhealthy. And thank God I got through it. But I really think I could be like a voice to help people that are going through it, and like they feel like there's no way out, that are living like recluses in their house because they feel like there's no way out from this thing that happened to them. Like, I would way rather use my voice and like write a book and do everything I can to help the little guys that are dealing with something like this. And even if they did do the thing, like, people deserve to have a second chance at life. Like, your reputation really is worth so much. And it's like, people are like, oh, why don't you just change your name? And in my situation, I was like, why would I change my name? What the fuck did I do? Like, this bitch like wrote lies, and she gets to go on and be on Dateline and write her book, and not just write it, get a book deal by Simon and Schuster and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? No, like, I'm at least gonna fight back as much as I can. Every time that somebody told me I couldn't do something, oh, you can't get an attorney on a contingency. Oh, you can't sue the New York Times. I did all the things everybody told me I couldn't do. So yeah, I didn't like spend the next 4 years and go to court like Johnny Depp. But guess what? Like, I'm not a multi-millionaire. I'm not Johnny Depp,
Yeah, the fact that you were even able to get to do any of this, they make it very daunting. They make it extremely expensive. The average person doesn't understand any of the legalese. And she's so well connected. She has so many contacts, and like, you can even tell from that video of that guy that's the pinned tweet on your Twitter, and there's like a snippet of it where like these young kids, they're 19, 20 years old, they're speaking in these legal terms that they don't know. And that was a signal to you. You're like, oh, Taylor got to them. She's putting these words, these sentences in their mouth, in their heads, and they're just spitting them back without understanding what they even mean.
Right. Absolutely. And
brainwashed them all.
Yeah. And the other thing that was tough, right, is because right when it happened, I'm like, God damn, these kids, like, they're the ones that are gonna destroy me. Like, after everything I did for them, like literally a month ago, they're like, oh, I can't go home because my parents are scared I'll get COVID, and I want to make TikToks, and can I stay here you're at this house? And I'm like, I guess, like, so I was trying to meet it. But the thing was, and I'm glad that my mentors sort of like helped me not go off the rails, is that, immediately I wanted to like put all those videos out, like call all those kids out. But then, like, when you really look at it, it's going to be like, okay, this adult person is like trashing these kids who, like, maybe they didn't, maybe they didn't, but like, they don't know what the hell they're doing. They just want to be famous, so I had to give the kids a bit of grace, right? Because they wanted to be famous, and they had this person, Taylor Lorenz, in their head. And it's just like, at the end of the day, I'm glad I didn't.
Got it from Taylor.
Waivers that. Oh yeah, that's anything.
Are you acting as an agency without a license, so all your documents are invalid? Aren't you acting as an agency without a license, so all your documents are invalid?
No.
Tiana,
are you an attorney?
I'm legally.
I'm gonna rewind it because it was on super fast.
And the other part, by even looking at the footage, we can see Taylor's influence on these kids, as some of the TikTok influencers use very specific language that makes me think they got it from Taylor.
Waivers that anything.
Aren't you acting as an agency without a license, so all your documents are invalid? Aren't you acting as an agency without a license, so all your documents are invalid?
No.
You're working illegally. You have a license.
Tiana, are you an attorney?
I'm legally smarter than you, apparently.
Let me be clear. They signed no talent agency contract with influences. They signed management or production contracts.
Like
a small.
Like, the funny part is that anybody that sees that little video clip, they're like, one of my attorneys was like, how did you like live with those people? Like, how did you
Oh,
not have
like,
your head explode?
why
Like,
did you do that?
those people are terrible. Like those kids, though, that kids were being terrible. And I think like
They come off like rich kids upset with their dad for not buying them like the latest car or
right.
something
And
like
that's, I mean, and the thing was too, is that I know that Taylor was in their ear because like, you know, a couple weeks before they were like chanting, Ari, like chanting my name because I took them to dinner, you know, at like Dave and Buster's or something. Cause like they like, yeah, I mean, some of them, you know, and I think what Taylor did was that she like told them like, oh, you're going to be in the New York Times trashing Ari, and they thought like that was going to help their career somehow. I do think that they thought they were going to get verified because on Instagram you used to have 3 like major pieces of articles written about you in order to get Instagram verified, and like Instagram verification was like gold. Literally like what's it called, the holy grail for these kids.
Mhm.
All they wanted was to be Instagram verified. And then what's so funny is like now you can just pay for Instagram verification. But
Same
but
with
yeah,
Twitter. Yeah.
most likely Taylor was dangling a carrot of you know,
The
basic
verification.
the
Yeah.
verification. And but you know, the other decision, like part of the reason why I wanted to get, you know, I felt like we could end the lawsuit where it was, is that like, if let's just say that we had gone into any type of settlement discussions where I was going to get paid or whatever, which by the way, the New York Times has like a rule that they don't pay out on defamation cases. They will only like possibly maybe I don't know, but I think they would only consider maybe like putting in you know, maybe they would consider putting in a like retraction or a correction. But then if they decide to do that and we like are negotiating with them, then I would have to sign probably like a gag order. Like I wouldn't be able to talk about this. So
Wow.
why would I want to get a little correction in the New York Times and then not be able to talk about this ever again? It's like, fuck that. I can make way more money and create way more positive influence with my story than I can not talking about it, especially because I know how I am. Like it'd probably be impossible. Even if I signed that paper, I'd definitely get in trouble for like eventually I would say something that I wasn't supposed to say.
Right.
You
And I
know?
think even the New York Times is big, you would have more reach going on, you know, all the platforms you have access to and speaking to all the people you know.
By the way, did you see the recent article that was just put out? It's called like I was a New York Times heretic or something like that.
No, let me find that.
Oh my God, you have to read the first 2 paragraphs. It's so good. Okay, so it's basically a guy that worked for the New York Times. Do you want me to
Here
find
it
the link
is.
for you? Okay,
I see it.
it's so good.
Okay, it's in the Atlantic by Adam Rubenstein. I was a heretic at the New York Times. I did what I was hired to do, and I paid for it. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, I have to read I have to get a free trial to read it. FML.
Oh, really? Wait, can you read just the first paragraph?
Oh, no.
Oh.
Yes, I can read a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
One of my first days at the New York Times, I went to an orientation with a dozen other new hires. We had to do an icebreaker, pick a starburst out of a jar, and then answer a question. My starburst was pink, I believe, so I had to answer the pink prompt, which had me respond with my favorite sandwich. Russ and Daughter's Super Heapster came to mind, but I figured mentioning a $19 sandwich wasn't a great way to win new friends, so I blurted out the spicy chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A and considered the ice broken. The HR representative leading the orientation chided me. "We don't do that here. They hate gay people." That's what makes me like them even more. People started snapping their fingers in acclamation. Oh, the snapping. I hadn't been thinking about the fact that Chick-fil-A was transgressive in liberal circles for its chairman's opposition to gay marriage. Not the politics, the chicken, I quickly said, but it was too late. I sat down, ashamed. As far back as I can remember, my parents have subscribed to the Times. As a kid, I'd run out to grab the newspaper from the driveway most mornings, and we'd do the crossword puzzle together on the weekends.
Yeah, that's the only part I read too. Oh, is it letting you keep going? I actually haven't read the
Let
rest.
me see if I can log in.
If not, no, that's all I read too. That's the funniest part, I think. Can you believe that? He said Chick-fil-A and they got mad.
That it doesn't surprise me in the least.
But that's, you know, but I think it doesn't surprise you, but that's pretty that's pretty eye-opening to a lot of people, right? Most people wouldn't think like, wow, it is really that woke there. Like, it's so woke you can't say you like Chick-fil-A.
Nope. You can't even eat a chicken sandwich you like because there's identity politics attached. Oh, wow.
And so like
gosh.
these are the things that I guess, I didn't really think about when I was building a business. Like I said, I was trying to help influencers like, fix their thumbnail images or make a better title on their YouTube channel, or talk to Snapchat and figure out why their page was down. I mean, I understood obviously that media played a role in navigating like how some of these people get famous, but unless you're like Charlie D'Amelio, Mr. Beast level, you don't need like a full-time PR person. You just basically need somebody that's going to make sure you don't like say something racist or say something, and I was
What fun is that though?
I mean, to be honest with you, these people I was like managing, one of them, they were saying the N-word all the time and they would be like on live streams. And I'm like,
Oh my
you're
God,
literally going to
really?
get shut down, you idiot. Like, don't say the N-word on a stream. Yeah. And they're like, when the George Floyd thing happened, they were doing all this when the George Floyd stuff was going on. There was a picture of like, a white kid with his knee on another one. Like, I guess they must have been joking. I don't know. But the kid looked a lot like one of the kids that I was representing. And as a joke, literally as a joke, because they knew I would have a heart attack, they sent me the picture and they're like, Ari, look what Marcus did. And I'm like, oh my God, he posted that. And I started like freaking out because I thought it was one of the kids in my houses. And then they were like laughing, like they're like, yeah, that's what I thought. And they're like laughing, haha, it wasn't him. I mean, but these kids were like, they didn't care. They didn't think that any of that stuff was going to get him canceled. And even if Lorenz had seen that, she wouldn't have put them on blast because she didn't care. She wanted to put me on blast. Like, you know what I'm saying? Those kids could have been like, causing fires, murderous, like whatever it was. Like, she didn't care. She wanted to take me out because
you're the competition.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's so dirty. And another thing which this guy in that report mentions that she never disclosed. I guess there was some spray painting on the walls of the house. Ari is a
you can play
bitch.
that part.
They claimed, God, that it was you who had spray painted that, which is insane. Let me find.
But she didn't even the thing about Lorenz's piece is that she interviewed none of my like business partners, nobody else, like, because she knew that those people had like a lot of people that were not, I didn't have any business partners. Actually, I had like advisors and people like that. And so one of my advisors was literally the head of the television academy. He was the CEO of the Emmys. She knew that he had like prestigious jobs. So did she want to call him and say like, what do you think about Ari? Of course she didn't, because she didn't want this prestigious person to say something nice about me, right? She only talked to people she knew would lie. And she didn't even include that the influencers did this at one of the houses.
So I'm going to play the audio.
And by the way, the reason they did this is because I caught them drinking alcohol at the house, and they're not supposed to drink alcohol. And I found a bunch of weed and alcohol, and I'm like, you guys, this is a liability. I'm gonna shut this house down. Sorry.
Like, no wonder you refer to them as kids. They're acting like children.
The TikTokers didn't call the police. Ari Jacobs called the police to the house. Taylor doesn't bother reporting that fact. Just like Taylor does not bother reporting that someone spray painted Ari is a bitch inside the Girls in the Valley house. Now, some TikTokers say Ari Jacobs did this. Ari says some TikTokers did this. I'll let you decide. But I think it's important to point out those photos somehow never made it into the reporting. But what did make it in, and I think this is important because it shows the depths of Taylor's dishonesty, is a quote by Devion Young. A really mean and insidious quote that has no business being in the article, except again to hurt Ari's character. You see, Taylor quotes Drip Crib founder Devion Young, who says, Ari manipulates you. It's a nightmare, Devion Young said. He said she used nude photos of his to shame him. Quote, right before we parted ways, she leaked my nudes and sent them to business partners, people in my house, and potential investors to slander my name, saying I was unprofessional. But Ari did not leak Devion's nudes, and Taylor has to know this because Taylor writes in the emails no one is alleging Ari leaked nudes. So Taylor knows Devion is likely lying to her. I have the emails. No one is alleging Ari leaked nudes, and then includes the quote, "She leaked my nudes."
So that helped you prove the malice, I assume.
Right. Yeah. And well, it just helped me prove to the judge that this is a legitimate case that could include, that we could potentially prove malice if we go forward. And I think the last part of the video that was like, that makes it even. I guess it shows why I went to the lawsuit in the first place, because like I said, I was just going to try to move on with my life. I was like, to be honest with you, I remember going to, I had a therapist in LA, and he's like this fancy therapist that like Mike Tyson goes to, and Robert Downey Jr. and like a bunch of, high profile people. And he's like a good therapist, like the kind that actually talks to you and doesn't just like sit there and listen to you and then bill you.
Doodles.
But one day I had brought 2 of the influencers in and to meet with them, because I'm like, dude, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Like they seem to be rebelling all the time, and like I'm just trying to help them. And I brought them in to meet him. And when the next time that I went by myself, he was like, yeah, so I think you should shut your business down. And I'm like,
oh my God, really?
And I'm like, yeah. I was like, why? And he's like, Ari, like, you are way too smart, too good of a person to be surrounding yourself with these types of toxic people. He's like, I think, he's like, if I had to, like, I think if you continue with this business, it's inevitably going to fail, not because of you, but because of how, basically like these people are willing to do anything to get famous, and they're so manipulative and cunning and just bad people that that I really think that like it's not good for you, it's not healthy. And he's like, and I think you'd be wasting your talents to spend more time on them. And then 2 weeks later the article dropped, and I was like, damn. I think it's like, I think he even said something like, if you don't close the company down, I have this weird feeling, I don't know if you believe in God or something, but God's gonna close it down for you, because it's not for you. Like it's not for you.
Wow.
And so
isn't that everyone in Hollywood basically, and doing anything to be famous, throw anybody they need to under a bus just to get ahead?
Yeah. And I, so if I was still doing that, I mean, I remember like when I was managing those influencers, like I couldn't go on dates. Like, I'm like, what am I going to do? This guy's going to pick me up at this pink and purple house with like skeletons spray painted on the walls. Like, come on, nobody's going to take me seriously. And I just felt like I was a mom to like 30, 40 teenagers that were all going through their like terrible phase, burning down the house, So, yeah, I guess like all in all, I'm glad that I'm not still doing that. But what I was going to do after Taylor wrote the article is that I always had a vision for a platform. So I owned influences.com, which is a really good domain name, right? Influence with an S.com. And so I'm like, okay, it would be really cool to build like an Ari in your pocket, right? Like a manager in your pocket where you're like, hey,
like a flashlight.
So like, okay, earlier you're like, okay, what should I tweet? Should I tweet, tune into Ari's lawsuit? And then I was like, no, put how to survive a hit job, right? Because I know like certain like titles that are going to convert better. And not to say, I mean, you know more about live streaming than I do, but I know a lot about these little tricks that I watched with these influencers. So I'm like, what if I built an app where I didn't have to be a manager. You could just use it to do anything that you needed to do online, right?
Like optimization, right?
Like just how do you make a buck as an influencer? And did you know there's a stat? It's like 86% of people 13 to 38 would like to make money as a social media influencer on social media.
What's that study? 36% of people between
86% of people between 13 to 38 years old, if they had the opportunity to make money as an influencer, they would like to. And a huge percentage of young people want to be a YouTuber when they grow up. So when you're a parent and your kid says like, I want to go play soccer, or I want to play, like, I want to be a ballerina, like you get them a soccer coach, or you put them in, ballet classes, piano classes,
Get
whatever.
them an eating disorder. Yeah. Get them a leotard. Get them a cat.
So, but the problem is that if this huge percentage of young people want to be influencers, and then, okay, so like as a parent, you buy your teenager like a camera, and then you help them get signed up on YouTube, and then your kid starts making videos and they get no views, then what happens? These kids start getting really depressed because they can't go to their mom and dad and be like, Mom, help me make my thumbnail image like better. Like, why am I not converting? Like, am I posting at the wrong time? Parents are like, can you imagine a parent
You
giving
don't
advice
know.
on that? So what
Even
happens?
a young parent, even like a, I don't know, like not necessarily every well, there's no hope a boomer parent would know, but even not every millennial parent would know this
No,
stuff.
absolutely not. So I'm like, okay, why don't I do this other thing to help young people? Because that, like, to be honest with you, that's always been my passion. Like, it's not going to go away.
But Ari, does that mean that huge of a percentage of kids should be YouTubers, should be influencers? Even though that's what they say. I wanted to be a gymnast when I was little.
Okay,
But,
well, let's say you did become a gymnast, okay? And now you're on the American gymnastics team, right? If you're a gymnast on the American gymnastics team, guess how you're going to make more money if you know how to use social media?
Endorsement deals. Yeah.
Right. But you're not going to be a big social media influencer if you don't know how to use social media. So basically what I'm saying is, like, no matter if you're a real estate agent or anything, you still need to be able to understand how to use social media. So even if you're just using it to build up your LinkedIn profile, like, you could use this app and say, hey, how do I build up my LinkedIn profile? Whatever you want to ask it. So all this knowledge I have could be put in one place. So I was like, okay, I'm going to build Influences as an app. I found a business partner that had already built an influencer app. In fact, Jim just sold his app or his platform for like $140 million or something like that.
Neat.
And he was like, you're onto something. I want to work with you. So I start working on this, and I was going to raise capital for this startup. And at the end of the video, I think he talks about it, but basically this woman named Christy, she reached out to me and she's like, hey, I don't want to write an article about Taylor Lorenz and like everything that happened with you, but like, why don't we write an article about how, you got knocked down and you're getting back up. And so it was like, this TikTok manager or whatever it was, that she's basically how she survived the hit piece and is moving on. Right. And when Taylor Lorenz found out that this reporter was going to do a positive article about my new company, 6 months, I don't know if it was 8 months after Taylor had already destroyed my life, my career, like my first business, my management company, she destroyed it. Taylor called that woman's boss and ranted to her editor that I'm a literal abuser that doesn't deserve positive press.
Ooh.
So it's like, bitch, you're going to drown me and then you're going to hold my head underwater for a year, 2 years? How long? Till I like really die? Till I like off myself? I'm sorry, but like, what are you really trying to do, bitch? And that at that point, like, my Latina fire got so fired up. I'm like, I'm going to find a way to sue her. And I did. So it's like, you know what? If she would have just let it go, like, maybe I would have. And ultimately, I do want to start this platform, and I'm working with Jim again. And Jim gave me the best advice ever, because I was like, should I drop the lawsuit? What should I do? And he's like, do you know the story of Dr. Dre? And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, Dr. Dre had all his music with Suge Knight at Death Row Records, and Suge Knight basically controlled him, and he wasn't letting him out of the contracts. He owned all the masters, and basically Dre went there and went in one day and was like, you can fucking have it all. I'm starting Aftermath. And then, because like literally when you have something that's so toxic, that's like holding you back, you can't focus on your new stuff. And ultimately, like, I can make way more money, in my opinion, probably doing the things that I'm good at, the same or more than I would have made possibly if I beat the New York Times in this like crazy case that nobody's beat since night. Like, as a business decision, right? The chances of me becoming like exceptionally successful on my own, doing something positive, building a platform for teenagers, for adults, for people to manage their social media, versus to stay in this like negative place that's going to basically muzzle me for the next 4 years and just have me walking on eggshells of who I want to talk to, who I want to hang around. I mean, it was a pretty
Costing you more money.
costing me. And guess what? Dr. Dre started Beats by Dre a few months after that, or I don't know how long after that, and became a billionaire. So like, to me, this is my Dr. Dre moment. Like, Taylor, you can have all those influencers, have all their contracts, have all the money they didn't make. You could tell their story. I don't give a shit. Like, I have my story. I have my talents. And like, ultimately, now the best revenge is to be super successful and launch this app. And when she tries to do a hit piece on my app, everyone's going to laugh at her.
Oh, everyone's already laughing at her. And again, it's like, and I could see maybe a scenario if you were a different kind of person with a bigger ego, you'd be like, no, I'm gonna get it. You'd stick to the New York Times plan, and like, I'm gonna be the one. I'm gonna be the first one to win since the '60s. But you're just sort of evaluating, like, no, is it worth my quality of life to keep going on this, or literally just cut off the dead weight, start anew, start being productive again?
Yeah. And I mean, and I'm not gonna lie, like, I had good people giving me good advice, telling me to do that in 2020. But if I had done it in 2020 without even trying to sue Taylor, I would have lived the rest of my life like curious, like, what if I had just tried? Right. And ultimately, me trying, and by the way, like, definitely getting some wins in court, and definitely like getting on Tucker Carlson, all that stuff, I think it gave me a platform where people aren't going to fuck with me like that again.
A lot of public wins and a lot of like messages to her of like, yeah, no, you really can't fuck with me. Like, I actually did come after you in a meaningful way, and you should probably think about that the next time you try to do that again.
Right. And anybody else that wants to come at me unfairly, and like, I think I'm a pretty open-minded person. Like, I don't like to judge people with like based off of anything, right? Like their politics, like they look like. I'm like a highly empathetic person, and I like to try to understand people. But I think back then, when I was sort of a naive entrepreneur, with like big dreams, I'm gonna, do all this stuff. And then I watched like, a lot of people were making millions of dollars. And so I was like, finally I'm going to make it, finally my dad's going to call me up and be like, okay, well, you really fucking made it this time, and like, that was the moment I wanted to savor. And then when it all got taken away, I thought that was it. And then I think over the course of the last 3 years, I realized like, that's not it. Like, was it my goal to just make money? Like, no, my goal was always to leave an impact and to have a legacy. And I think now that I've dealt with this like really, difficult thing that I dealt with, and then not only did I come back from it, I learned how a system works, and I feel like I can help other people that are going to deal. I think cancel culture is going to be like something that every person, every kid deals with on a level that's much scarier than just like when we were kids and we would get bullied. It's like when you're a kid now and like somebody, you send a selfie to yourself, that selfie goes all over Snapchat of you in your bra. Like that's life ruining, and kids are taking their lives over things like this. And I think that if I can build like a game plan for what you do when like a bully is attacking you in any sense, in the media, in your
character. Yeah, it was like we had it good. We'd just be like beat up or like challenged to a fight, pushed into a locker, and it was over with. But this is like life ruining, reputation ruining stuff.
Yeah. So, and I think people don't know what to do when it happens to them. And I don't know, I guess just surviving it for me, like it was always, my mentors always said that. They said, look, if you go after and you win, then you write a book about how you won. You lose or you don't move forward with it, and you write a book about how like it's almost impossible. Like it's not impossible, but it's pretty much impossible. Like I'm the person that's like, don't say anything's impossible. And I like, again, even not trying would have been a bad idea. But when you put everything out there to do it, and then even then I basically had to make a decision, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's just a business decision. Am I happier doing this other thing and being able to talk and all this stuff? Like, what's going to make me happy? And ultimately, like putting 100% of my focus this app is not going to be an easy thing to build. It's going to take all my time, all of Jim's time, all these people. And then if I'm over here building this app and then I have this lawsuit and I have to prepare for, depositions, and I have to, you can't do both. I really don't think, I think before I didn't have the thing, I didn't have the other thing that I could put my mind to. I really was like dead set on just getting a few punches in with Lorenz. But now I'm like, okay, what is going to be ultimately, what's going to make me successful and like leave a legacy that I want to live, like, or want to leave. Right. And if I can help a bunch of young people to, like you were saying earlier, is it good for people to be on social media? Well, I think that it's better if they have a mentor like that has a conscience and like, some moral fibers that can like, just like, Google puts its woke fibers into Gemini,
Right.
and like, maybe I can just put some like common sense, like good human being fibers into my app that are not political, that are not, but it's just like how to be a kind human being, how to be a good person. And a lot of creators too, they deal with what's called like burnout. These kids, especially young people, it's like they get a dopamine hit when they are getting likes and followers. And when they don't get that hit, they're really hard on themselves, and they don't have like an app or an AI that's talking to them being like, hey, Chrissie, no problem. Your post from yesterday didn't go viral, but I have some pointers that maybe for the next one, you can do X, Y, and Z. By the way, why don't you take a break today? Or like, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what it's going to do.
Oh, like Netflix. Are you still watching? Like, want to go outside, touch some grass?
Yeah,
drink some water?
exactly. I think like these AIs have to have some human elements built into them to where, people feel. I mean, think about how good it is to have a mentor, a coach. I don't know if
And
you've
maybe, wouldn't it be great to be like, also, hey, little Richie, maybe you are not cut out for this. Like, maybe I can tell that maybe you should just go to trade school and have no debt, and maybe get familiar with a plunger, okay? Because it's probably you'll be happier, I think.
Yeah. Someone's talking, how's the coding going on that app? Well, we're not at the coding phase, my friend, but it's going to be a big database full of a lot of information that will then have to, it'll be at machine learning. But
To answer your question, no, I didn't really have mentors. I was
You didn't?
very lucky to meet a boyfriend who is now my husband, who kind of like
He's your mentor?
very in a sense, like
Aw,
when we
that's
were
so
dating
sweet.
couple years into dating, he just was kind of like, I see what you're doing, and I see like what your schedule is like. Still working day jobs at that point, but he'd be like, I see what your plan of attack is with stand up, and it looks like you're not very serious about this. Like, do you want to be serious about it? Because like, here are your patterns, here's what you're doing, here's what you're not doing. And just that's what's the best thing about your close relationships. It's a mirror, and the people that can criticize you or the people that can show you where you can improve are your biggest friends and champions.
Well, I was
So
gonna say, how good did that feel when you felt like, okay, here's someone who believes in me? And that's the problem. I think that kids, so even today, like for example, it's really hard to find a mentor these days. You want to know why? Because most people no, not that. Because most people that are worth something, that are, wealthy, that have a lot of knowledge, if you let someone into your life that is broke or that is learning, that person, if you let them in your life, can turn on you and like take a lot more away from you, right? So if you have just like, anything, these athletes that are hanging out with girls, and not just that, but like anybody, like what happened to me with these influencers, right? Anybody that you let into your life that you try to help, and especially if you're not making money off of it, if you're a mentor to somebody, and I mean, there's probably hundreds of cases that you could look at of people who were their mentors getting turned on by and so people, because we're living this like Me Too thing, like forget about having a mentor that's a man. I mean, if you're a woman, forget about a man who's married wanting to sit there and mentor you. Why would they?
Which
right?
sucks, because those are the dudes that can actually help you.
And then when it comes to women, a lot of women don't want to help other women, right? It's like, it's
competition. It's like,
competition. Yep.
oh, you're younger than me. Oh, you're whatever.
Yep.
But you have to be secure in yourself, and you have to know you have no competition. You're your own. You from yesterday. That's your competition.
Yep. And the other thing too is like, think about all these like, people that go on social media and they're like, I worked for Mr. Beast for free, making his videos for 3 months. And, they don't talk about how he helped them, get millions of views. They're like, yeah, he didn't pay me. He didn't pay me for those views. And so he broke the 1099 rule or like whatever, like, and so then Mr. Beast gets sued for letting that kid
He gets shit for putting fucking water fountains in Africa.
Yeah.
What did he do? He just gave Africa water, and people find a problem with that. And it's like, wow.
So that's like, we're living in this sort of like hyper, like, what is it? Just this culture.
Hypercritical, hyper like, oh, you like when I was, God, just this morning, I was a little bit suspended on Twitter because I was talking about getting maced at the comedy club on Saturday.
Oh, wait, I
And
want to
I
hear
w-
this
And I was
story.
like,
Yeah.
oh, some cowardly faggot did this to me. And then people go, do you really have to use that word? And I'm like, we were maced. Like, we were pepper sprayed. We couldn't fucking breathe. We had to
Yeah.
rush outside. Oh,
Awful.
but you're going to jump on my dick about saying faggot? Okay. Like, okay, leftists.
By the way, Taylor Lorenz wrote an article about Mr. Beast. Something like the title was like Mr. Beast with a history of homophobic slurs, because when he was like 14, he tweeted like, my printer's being a fag or something. I forget what he said. He's like said something like my printer's being gay, or it was something about the F word or whatever it was.
Right, because colloquial 90s calling things gay, fag behaviors. You're using that to describe a behavior, an event, an action, not
it wasn't against gay people.
Yeah. It's not a disparaging thing against actual gays. And like, you have to be retarded to not see that. But they know that. They just go, oh, I can get you on this.
I know. Yeah, I mean, wait, so what happened? Like I saw, did you already talk about this?
I have, but it's okay. We were doing the show Saturday. I was headlining. Keanu was hosting. My buddy Andrew from my Compound Media show and Gino were doing spots. The show was over. It was like 10:15, 10:30. We're doing like I never charge people to do a fucking meet and greet because I think that's gay. I'll just be like, people will hang after, and if someone wants to buy a shirt or get a photo or whatever. And so I'll sometimes stand there for like an hour or 2 hours, like however long it takes, because like if there's not another show coming in, like I have nowhere to be. I'll talk to people. And all of a sudden I'm talking to our friends who they used to host secret shows in their backyard over the pandemic. And then they ended up moving to Pennsylvania. So they came all the way out. And I just start laughing, and then I start coughing, and then I'm in like a coughing fit, and I start drinking some water, and I'm like, why am I in this like kind of cringing coughing fit? Like you're embarrassed about yourself. I like kind of went into the green room, and then I was like, is this attached to the kitchen? Is there something burning in the kitchen? I come back out, I'm coughing, like my eyes are just like tearing, like streaming down, like BJ mascara eyes level of just like,
oh
like,
my
just,
God.
so many tears.
You poor thing.
I noticed everybody else is coughing too. 12 people in this little hallway area, all coughing. And then we're like, what's going on? People are figuring out. And Keanu figured out what it was because she had been at a New Year's party years ago where someone had like a pepper spray bombed the place. And she knew it. She's like, Chris, you got to get the fuck out of here. Like, everyone, we got to get outside. So like the 10, 12, 15 of us all go outside. Wait 20, 30 minutes. Like I ran outside with no coat. I just grabbed like my phone, my wallet.
Oh my gosh.
And so we're like, what's going on? And I just was like, I've never experienced anything like this before. We wait. I see a few people outside, a few photos with people outside. We come back in. At that point, Frank's dad, who had drove me out there, packed up all my shirts. And I was like, oh, I have to go get my computer and my camera still. So we go back into the room, and you can tell there's a little bit of like remnants still. But you're like, who did this? Why would someone do this? What's going on in there? I don't think there are cameras in that hallway where this happened.
Oh no.
So there's just like a couple theories. Like it could have been someone, like pepper sprayed the area, walked away. Because again, if someone had come up to my face and did this, I would of course be able to jump on them, describe them. I would know exactly who did it.
Oh my gosh.
But I think someone maybe like sprayed and walked away, or maybe they just stuck an arm in a bathroom, sprayed, walked away. Because it had to have happened right in that hallway area because it was enough for all of us to be affected. I don't think it happened in the comedy club room because that was the next room.
Right.
So it either wafted into the hallway from the bathrooms or it happened in the hallway. But again, I didn't see, nor was I looking for anybody like running away. And again,
My
we were on the
God.
second floor, so it's not like someone would have had to have come in off the street, walked upstairs, sprayed the area, and then walked away. There was also like a drunk table, pissed
It's
at
like if
another
this would have
table.
happened to like
Yeah.
Chelsea Handler, it would be all over the news too. It's like
It's so interesting too, and I think this is you look at the larger trend going on with comedy now. There's this club in Seattle who just canceled Louis J. Gomez, Kurt Metzger, Dave Smith, and Jim Florentine, and they all have the same management, by the way.
oh wow.
They get canceled. They had already been selling tickets, but this woke comedy club is like, oh, we decided it's not a safe space if we have these guys performed. Like, like
Yeah.
we polled our local fucking dirtbag comics, and they all thought it was a bad idea.
Oh
It's like,
my
don't you guys
God.
want to make money? Meanwhile, we have Kathy Griffin bitching that no one will buy her tickets. Her shows aren't selling well, yet they will turn away the decent selling acts, people like me, people like Florentine, Metzger, Louis J. Gomez,
Honestly, your
out
comedy
of
show,
ideological reasons.
not even like because I'm friends with you, but like it was one of the funnier shows I've seen, and it was all women. Like, why don't they support women? And oh, by the way,
We're not the right
you
kind.
have somebody with a disability they should be
Who's ethnic? She's
Yeah.
Filipina and disabled. What more do you want?
Yep.
And fucking
But they don't want to support
Kiana's
that.
Italian and Irish,
And to be honest, like I don't think that your whole thing is like super conservative. It's just like funny. It's making fun of funny stereotypes. Like that was what comedy was always about, was making fun of funny stereotypes, wasn't it? I mean,
so much of it is what you look like on social media, the lines you draw in the sand on social media, the hills you choose to die on. And for me, it's always going to be free speech. It's always going to
yeah.
be anti-woke. It's always going to be like, nope, you say the funny thing. Don't worry about being politically correct. Don't worry about offending a precious victim group. You joke about everyone equally. No one is exempt from jokes. No one is so precious and so special that you have to tiptoe around. And it's not our job to tiptoe around the mentally ill. It's not our
No.
job to, oh my God, well, if I tell this joke, I'm going to have this group coming out. Black Twitter tried to cancel my baby registry because I said, oh, I
What?
thought the Black national anthem was just sirens, Oh, yeah.
What?
So that was an old
Oh
joke
my
from years ago.
God.
Black national anthem played on the Super Bowl, so I tweeted it again whenever the Super Bowl
Yeah.
happened, and it was just a video retweet of the Black
They tried
national
like
anthem.
to like email the company that runs your baby registry.
Yes, so some girl was like, because it made its way into Black Twitter, like, oh, she's so racist. Look at all the racist comments, and I'm like, it's a fucking joke. And then some lady's like, oh, I tried calling up the venue, but it's a white-owned venue, which was Tiff's, where the fucking place was, pepper
Yeah.
sprayed. Oh, it was a white-owned venue, but up next, I'm gonna try to like confront her baby registry. I'm trying to contact the baby, which is on Amazon. What you can do? Hi, Amazon. This, this thing that you're getting business from, and people
That's
are buying
crazy.
stuff.
I feel like you can't even do comedy with like how do you do woke comedy? How do you do woke comedy that's actually funny? Like I don't think that's possible. So it's like
no, but some comics don't care about free speech. I learned this during the pandemic. Some comics do not care about medical freedom or rights or really anything. A lot of them, similar to your experience with the TikTokers, will literally just sell their soul to be famous, will do anything, walk over anyone to get that Hollywood bag, to get in movies.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, is I think that a lot of people that want to be famous, want to be in Hollywood, they don't even have any type of like not morals or standards, but like maybe they have no really political feelings, or maybe they do, but when they realize that if you're not super liberal, that like I think this happened to Logan Paul a little bit, because like Logan Paul, I think would most like hanging out with Logan Paul just one-on-one, I would say definitely he would lean Republican, but I feel like he toes the line to play, because you know he probably is repped by
Because there is
UTA
a
or
cost.
Yeah,
There is
yeah,
a cost to being out about it.
right, right.
And I have comics that I'm friends with that are in my DMs who I know feel as I do, but they're very tied to their management. They're very dependent on their management. They don't know that they can do it on their own. They're afraid to lose that security, lose those gigs, so they have to kind of be quiet on certain issues.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, but you know, at the end of the day, like I think these people are getting called out like more, like maybe the tide is turning a little bit. I don't know. Do you think that, because I mean, a couple years ago, like what are those YouTubers that there's like more YouTubers now that are like pro Republican and they don't really give a shit. Like they're just like, and they're really popular. I mean, like even Joe Rogan, right? Joe Rogan pretty much, you know what side of the aisle he's on. And I don't know, maybe if there's more voices like him that people like, Dave Portnoy, people like that, I think that are starting to
kind of making it okay for the mainstream.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you'll find pockets of that too. Like the adult industry is very leftist, very Democrat. But I'll meet and talk to these girls, and it's like the girls in the adult industry that are doing well, like guess what? They want to keep their money. They're voting for Trump. They're Republicans. You just can't be out about it. You know, some of them are very out about it, like a Brandy Love, but those are few and far between. And again, you have to hit a level of success and almost have kind of like FU money where you can be an out Republican, especially, you know, it's an even more leftist industry than comedy.
But I think even like I said with Taylor, like you could take someone that's completely apolitical like I was, and then you surround them with these like people that are have this ideology that's not even real, right? Because supposedly liberals, you know, they're going to help minorities and women and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm a minority, I'm a woman, and nobody like helped me at all. Like I tried to get my story on like Televisa or Telemundo, Univision, and my girlfriend that works there, she's like, Ari, I'm so sorry, like we can't have you on here. Like they don't want to go against New York Times. She's like, please don't go on Tucker Carlson. And I'm like, babe, like what am I supposed to do? Write a blog? Like I don't even, you know. And then at the end, I think, you know, my friends who were like one of my advisor who, you know, I think, you know, he's very liberal, but he was like, no, you got to go on Tucker Carlson because you have to have a platform. And then I think he kind of understood, you know, why. I think there was a point where I was posting the Tucker thing a lot, and then like some of my liberal friends were like, yo, you need to chill, you know. And I think I defended Kyle Rittenhouse too, because I watched every day of the trial. And then these freaking idiots that were watching the news like didn't watch the legal streams or anything. They were trying to dunk on me, and I'm like, here I am, like just trying to be somebody that's like, okay, I got destroyed because people read a headline and they didn't want to read the rest of the story. Anytime I read a headline, I don't care who it's about, I'm gonna just see what the other, if it's interesting to me, right? Like I'm gonna see the other side. If I ever like talk about it, I'm gonna see the other side. And I've lost friends over that. Like I'm really good friends with Chuck Liddell, and they did a story about him. He was like going through a crazy divorce. And I mean, Chuck, like if you ever met Chuck Liddell, he was a, you know, MMA fighter, whatever, but he's like a big teddy bear. Like he just wants to say hi to people, and he's happy, and he's like hanging around. He walks like like an ogre, kind of like he's hilarious.
That's how I walk now.
Yeah. And there was like an article that his wife said that like he did something to her, and it turned out that the cops like literally they didn't even take. I think what happened is they had to take someone to jail because she called the cops, and Chuck, I guess they were going to take her to jail, and Chuck was like, no, just like take me, because he didn't want to have more problems with her and divorce. Anyway, whatever it was, they wrote bad article about him. And one of my girlfriends was like friends with his ex-wife, and she's like, I can't believe you're defending Chuck. Like, he hit her. And I'm like, well, were you there when he hit her? Well, no. Oh, well, did you read the police report? No. Well, then I'm like, then shut up. I'm not going to listen to people that trash other people when they do not know the whole story. They do not know the other person. Like, I just like that type of behavior. It literally infuriates me.
Ari, who has
so
time
much.
to read?
Well, the other thing is, don't you think that even if you hadn't read that article, if you read the article about me or not, you know me, right? So you kind of know, what I'm
you're capable of and what doesn't make sense for your character. Yeah.
Right. And the problem is that, when somebody gets smeared in the media, what I really loathe is people in their circle who are like, like, I'm not going to talk to you. And
they're
exactly
so worried about their own damn
Yes.
reputation. And this happened. I lost a lot of friends in many different stages, from being an out Trump voter to going to compound media to January 6th. It's like, if you think your state in life, your reputation, your standing is so fragile that an affiliation with me is enough to snap that off, to destroy that, it's like, well, you're not as secure as you think you are. Because if just doing a podcast with me or coming on one of my shows is enough for you to lose opportunities, like, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem.
And it's just like, it definitely, I used to really care what people thought about me. And then I think I realized that people who you've done kind things for, you've shown them your character and all this stuff, and they're going to treat you like that. It's like, thank God you're getting those people away from me. Thank God you're showing me that they don't want to be in my circle. That's God being like, don't put them in your circle anymore. You know what I mean? You don't need a huge, you don't need everybody to like you. You just need to do what you think is the right thing. Be a good friend, be a good partner, be a good parent, if that's what you are. And that should be don't try to get everybody to like you, because some people you're trying to get to like you are shitbags.
Right. Not everyone is going to be a net positive in your life. And that's a big lesson to learn. When you were sort of being canceled, the first time I got canceled, I was recommended to read the book So You've Been Publicly Shamed by John Ronson. And I bring it up all the time because it really opened my eyes to the kind of group mind and mob psychology that happens, and it makes you realize to kind of not take the whole thing so personally, because it truly is about other people raising their kind of social credit score, or raising their profile, and it's not necessarily about you or what you did. It's like other people use it as their moment to shine when there's
absolutely
pile-on happening.
Yeah, and I think that who I think did it best, and I kind of dunked on her before, but I do have to give her credit, is the woman who said that she saw the alien or whatever, or she was on the plane. What did she say again?
Oh God, that motherfucker's not real.
That motherfucker is not real.
Gomez, is that her name?
Tiffany Gomez. Tiffany Gomez. Okay, so I watched all the videos of after she said that and the whole thing. And she was basically racially profiling this Indian guy, right? I don't know if he's Indian. I swear to God.
Don't we all?
I wish I had the video to show you, but it's literally she gets off the plane, and then they're interviewing the guy, and he was basically saying that she wait, what? Jesus.
This is funny. Jesus only had 12 in his circle, and one still sold him out, literally.
Boom, mic drop. So facts.
What would Jesus do?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so Tiffany Gomez, so you see the video of the guy that basically she was just screaming at on the plane, and then she said something's gonna happen on this plane. I'm getting off this plane. And then the cops are interviewing him, and they're like, yeah, I think she's having a bad, obviously she was drunk or on something.
Drugs
and
or
then
something?
Yeah, and then I forget exactly what she says, but I think she basically said this guy has a bomb. He's gonna bomb the plane because he's I don't know if he was whatever the race is that people think that people what's it called, that they put these stereotypes on. That's what she was doing. And she's so lucky because she said that while she was on her way home, like she's like told her mom, like, I'm gonna get canceled tomorrow. This is like a person that's in the marketing industry.
Oh.
So she was for sure thinking like I was being racist and tomorrow I'm gonna be canceled. And like by a strike of, luck for her, good for her, honestly, because I mean, maybe she was just drunk being an idiot and she was like, oh, this guy's gonna bomb the plane, whatever. I don't think that like her life should be ruined over that. But she like twisted it because everybody thought she was talking about an alien and she got away scot-free with it, which
Oh, wow.
good for her because I don't wish cancellation on anybody. But
So it was like a panic attack, and then there were all these theories that someone was like blinking sideways, and
she was just she was being crazy. But
that's funny though.
The more people can get away with not being canceled, I feel like it is a better for society.
Played it very well. Keely Chow, good luck on your lawsuit, Ari. Well, it seems like it's concluding, or at least in it for now.
We basically settled it out. We don't owe the New York Times anything. They don't owe me anything. Maybe if we had kept going, they could have sued me to pay all their legal fees. And it's just like, I honestly have never felt better. I didn't think I was going to feel like this. I really I've talked to friends and they're like, damn, you sound so good right now. You sound so happy. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't realize how much it was weighing me down.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like Kyle said something very wise, and he's just like, Ari, the only way that like Taylor Lorenz or like any of your haters, the only way they really win is like if they do what they succeeded and they make you unhappy and they make you destitute and not making money and miserable.
Creating. And
yeah. So it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go back to doing whatever I like to do. But the thing is too, is it definitely takes healing because there was like a 1 to 2, even when I was at your content house, like I had like serious like PTSD from what happened.
You said you had content house PTSD. I'm like, it's not like that, Ari. There's no TikTokers here. These are all comedians. We're all degenerates. Like,
no, yeah. Before I went, I was like,
no,
yeah, I didn't realize how cool all your friends were, but I definitely, I would just like, yeah, I just had trauma. Like I honestly was like messed up about it, especially because not to like sound arrogant or something, but I was always popular growing up. Like I always had a lot of friends. Like I'm just normally, people be like, oh, you're a happy person, walks in the room, makes other people happy. And like whenever the New York Times thing
to know and you're easy to like, for sure.
Thank you. And but you know what I'm saying? Like, so are you. And then I guess when you have that type of like outgoing personality and then like this thing happens and then you're like, well, what is my identity? Like, how am I supposed to act? Because I felt like, oh, if I act too much like this, people are going to be like, see, she's manipulating. She's trying to be nice so that you like her. And then she's going to fuck you. I don't, it's in my head.
People think that way.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, it definitely gets in your head. And I have a girlfriend who, she's really, really smart. But she's a hypnotherapist and she like hypnotizes and works with like some really successful billionaires. And she wrote a book about how you can basically do the hypnotherapy on yourself. Yes. And the first chapter was just like one of the things that you can do to help just with your mindset is never talk bad about yourself to yourself. Like never even slightly, like don't ever be like
that's all I do.
Like a better way to be like, oh, let's say I had been, I don't know, if I get here and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry I'm late, Chrissy, I'm such an idiot, I like, whatever. Instead of like doing that, it's just like, hey, I'm late, I didn't leave the house on time. And it's okay because you're not lying. You're not like,
right. Like I said to you, I was like, let's start at 9:30. I didn't finish watching that video you sent me. And I was like, this is obviously very important. And
don't you feel when you do stuff like that, you feel like a weight lifted off your shoulders but the thing is sometimes we do it unconsciously. Like we definitely do it when, let's say you went on a bender and you have like, really bad hangover, or like you do something when you're drunk and then the next day you're just like, oh my God, I'm such a loser idiot. Like, why would anybody hang out with me? Like, this is why I have no friends. Like, you cannot do that because it's
you're like really solidifying that message. You're telling yourself who you are.
It really is. It's something that you can't see. And I was doing that for a long time over something that's over lies, right? That like Taylor Lorenz did, and I was like angry about it, but I was more angry at myself that like, how did I not see it coming? Or like, why didn't I just show her the documents of L'Oreal? What, I don't know. You go back and forth of all these things you could have done. And now I look back and I'm like, everything I did, I really like, I'm proud of myself that I did it the way that I did. And nobody can take that away from me. Nobody can take away like the fact that I'm proud of myself, even if not one other person is. Like people on Twitter, like, you didn't actually win your lawsuit. Why are you lying? And it's like, I literally said I withdrew the lawsuit and this is a win for me. And this is why it's a win. Like, you know what I mean? I don't care
Yeah.
about what they think. I really could care less.
Most people
Because
are not familiar with this process at all.
no,
And,
but it's like, I'll never let people like, of course, everybody is hard on themselves. Harder. Like, if you think about it, sometimes the things you say to yourself, like you would never say it to another person. You'd never
No.
be like, you stupid idiot. This is why you have no friends.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say that to Taylor Lorenz. Like, I kind of feel sorry for her. She has like age dysmorphia.
Well, everyone knows why she doesn't have any friends. She's 67. Kate McKnight, thank you for the super chat. Love to both Chrissie and Ariadna. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Kate. Well, this is like very interesting. Yeah, and there are shades of gray here when you're considering like what is a win or what is a loss in something like this type of a lawsuit, which hopefully most of us won't ever have to go through. But I'm excited for your book.
Thank you.
You're full of potential. You're just an
Appreciate it.
absolute delight and a good friend, a good person. Fuck Taylor. She's clowning her just continuing to live her life is the best revenge because no one takes her seriously anymore. She's a
Yeah.
meme, a little cow.
I honestly I feel sorry for her. I pray for her that whatever is making her so like miserable will like get solved. And at the end of the day, like I really don't like wish anything bad on her. I hope she doesn't do more damage to other people that don't deserve it because if she does, I hope those people like email me, hit me up, like get a hold of me because I will help them get through it. And maybe filing a lawsuit, maybe just, having a lawyer write a letter and then you get your side out of this. I think it's important to get your side out, no matter how you get it out there. And, I appreciate people like you that kind of know, I mean, you definitely know what it's like to be canceled and that feeling of like shame over, you're like, I guess I feel shame, but like, why? Like, I didn't
Like,
do
ugh,
anything.
the feeling of being like, God, it really sucks to feel so misunderstood. And that's part of the reason why I
Yeah.
started this podcast is like, I want to talk to people who have been widely misunderstood, canceled, just, you Google them and everything that comes up is horrible. And it's great to just hear from folks directly and just don't let your haters write the story of you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
You're
I mean,
afraid.
and I think eventually you'll find people that will tell your story and you got to do whatever makes you happy at the end of the day. Like it made me happy to sue Taylor. It made me happy to take it all the way here. And it makes me happy to let it go now because
How many years of your life did you spend on this
yeah.
already?
And if I would have spent 4 more years, I could have missed out on, myself building my own media brand. Like I'm launching. So I already have like a monetized YouTube channel, but I haven't really put any content out on it. So I'm going to do a couple things. I have a podcast that I'm going to host. It's kind of like Brett. It's going to be a little bit like Brett Cooper's content, but it's like for a little bit older. So that's going to be called Elder Millennial. And then I'm gonna I got to pick a day for it, but I'm gonna live stream about an hour a day or an hour a week, and I'm going to go through the Hulk Hogan defamation trial. It's wild.
Oh, cool.
It's a really crazy story about how they leaked his and he actually sued Deadspin, and then they shut Deadspin down. So he ultimately won, but it's a crazy story because he had like a billionaire backing him, and then Hulk Hogan said so much funny stuff on the stand. So I'm excited to just like I'm gonna stream that, and I'm gonna invite my I have a lot of LawTube friends, so I'm gonna have different guests on.
Perfect.
So
He
I'm
put
doing
dead
that.
in Deadspin.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly. I'm doing that. And then what else am I doing? And then I'm working on my platform, which I'm not going to say the name yet because I don't want to give Taylor Lorenz a head start on trying to dismantle my my new company. But yeah, that's what I'm doing.
That sounds amazing, Ari. I'm so excited for you. Everyone follow Ari on Twitter at Little Miss Jacob. We are now going
Thank
to
you.
raid Cecil's stream. So when we get there, we're just going to ask Cecil to stop being gay. That is our directive, and I believe this stream is automatically going to forward over there. Ari, thanks again for just
Thanks for having me.
going so deep on all of this for all of us legal tards who may not understand the ins and outs, but I just feel like this whole experience has just made you stronger and more brave. So
thank you. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your friendship. That was another win I got out of Taylor Lorenz, is I met you. So, and I went to your wedding.
God, and you looked so hot at the wedding. Oh my God,
I love you.
this was great. Thank you everybody in the chat for your comments and questions, and we'll